If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description. Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. You are listening to the Brandon Lawson series. This is episode 2, Dissecting the Call. The infamous call to the police by Brandon Lawson. And of course, this is a call for which supposedly no one was dispatched to. So this is an emergency. The guy's bleeding. He says he needs the cops. And we have an unknown police dispatcher, as of yet identified and unknown, who answered this call. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Supposedly, another individual, a trucker, also called 911 regarding Brandon's truck, which was parked sticking out onto the road in an unsafe fashion, and supposedly that is the call to which police actually responded to. And it's all very, very suspicious, but we'll be taking a look and dissecting every aspect of this call, which we do have. And is that surprising that the 911 call has actually been released? I mean, we have other cases, like the Maura Murray case and other cases where they have never actually released the audio from the 911 call for whatever reasons. So is that suspicious in and of itself that we actually do have a call now? The call that might have been doctored and edited, of course. I mean, the most famous part with the state troopers. And other aspects of the call may have also been doctored because his tonality changes quite drastically. Some people say that's because he's on drugs, but could it also be that whether he's on drugs or not, could it also be that the call is doctored? And we'll be examining all of these issues and more. If you enjoy the Mindshock podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Help support the channel. Help us get more mind-shocking content out there for everyone to listen to, and keep awareness up in cold cases, unsolved cases, missing persons cases, and cases allegedly solved, but that might not actually have gotten the guilty perpetrators, and wrongful convictions as well. Plenty of cases to go over. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, make sure you allow a device to have those notifications come through, or you could just go to youtube.com/Mindshock. You could also go to youtube.com/Mindshock True Crime, which will be focused only on true crime. Mindshock, of course, covers a slew of topics in a typical Mindshock fashion with logic and reason at the forefront in a way nobody else covers topics. Hit the like button, share the podcast across social media platforms, of which you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic logical analysis, co-podcast or requests. You can also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. All right, so let's start off with the audio again. Let's listen to it again and see what we can glean from it.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. The guy's taking to the woods. Pretty flirty. And the one I talked to home. Hi, sure, you're in his home. That's the first guy. You need an ambulance? Yeah. No, I need the cops.
Now, there's a couple interesting things here, which we'll dissect. Supposedly the word detective or detectives that I actually didn't hear before. But one step at a time, let's go over this post by Dysentery Gary, posted 3 years ago on Reddit, Unsolved Mysteries subreddit. Excellent subreddit. I spent 10 hours picking the 911 call apart. He doesn't say Staper, and he wasn't alone. This is my first write-up. I've been meaning to listen to the Brandon Lawson 911 audio for a while, and I just happened to be recovering from a minor surgery this week, so I dove into the rabbit hole. I have a background in audio recording and have some pretty great software speakers and headphones to listen with, and I've spent over 10 hours listening to every syllable and word in this 38-second phone call. I believe I have it as accurately transcribed as possible. I am also 99% certain this is not the entire phone call. I'll write the entire transcription and then I'll break down each piece. Operator, 911 emergency. Brandon says, yes, I'm in the middle of the field. We're safe. We're just pushing guys over. We're out here going towards Abilene on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. A guy cha to the woods. Please hurry. And again, just from the outlook, just from looking at that transcription, it really does seem like this was cut and pasted from different parts of a phone call. Almost as if intentionally designed to deceive, possibly? I don't know. Operator says, okay, now run that by me one more time. Brandon, partially talking over the operator, they will not talk things over. I accidentally ran into him. Operator, oh, you ran into him, okay. Unknown voice, detective. Brandon says, shot the first guy. Now, I actually think it might be Brandon saying detective shot the first guy. Let's listen to it again.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing some guys over. Right here going towards Abilene on both sides. Not truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. You got to take it to the woods. 3 cars. Okay, now run that by me. When I talked to him, I told you ran into him. Ah, you ran into him. Okay. That's the first guy.
Actually, this guy might be right. The detective is in a different volume, almost like it's farther from the phone. So it does seem like someone else said detective, and then Brandon says shot the first guy. Coincidentally, there's something that sounds like a gunshot right after that. So what are the chances statistically that a car is going over the bridge on the road that allegedly you don't need to worry about laying down in the middle of the day? So now this is closer to 1 a.m., the middle of the night, whenever. What are the chances that a car goes by on this desolate road in the middle of the night at the exact moment where Brandon Lawson says, shot the first guy? Again, this is one for the coincidence theorists that maintain that not 1, not 2, not 3, possibly 4 sounds are all cars going over the bridge. They're not gunshots. Even though there's a guy calling 911 at the moment, talking about bleeding, talking about guys being chased into the woods, talking about somebody being shot. Let's listen to it again.
You ran into him. Okay. That's the first guy. Do you need an ambulance? Yeah, no, I need to call. Okay. Is anybody hurt? You got to take it to the woods. 3 cars. Okay, now run that by me. When I talked to him, I told you ran into him. Ah, you ran into him. Okay. That's the first guy. Do you need an ambulance? Yeah, no, I need to call. Okay.
So in the previous episode, it sounded like detective was actually protect yourself. Is it protect yourself or detective? Because this audio expert who spent 10 hours on this is saying it's detective. Now, since he mentioned that, it kind of does sound like detective. Let's listen to it again.
Is anybody hurt? Just the first guy. Hey. Just the first guy. Just the first guy. Hey. Just the first guy.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell whether it's detective or protect yourself. Either or seems to make sense contextually. If there's some kind of officer there, I really can't tell. Since he mentioned detective, it actually kind of sounds like detective a little bit more than protect yourself. Again, it seems farther from the phone, so that's also one of the reasons it's hard to tell. But let's continue here. After Brandon says, shot the first guy, there's a gunshot. Operator asks, do you need an ambulance? Brandon says, yeah. No, I need the cops. Operator says, okay, is anybody hurt? Brandon whispers, crap. And then the operator says, hello, hello, hello. So I don't know if I can hear the crap after he says I need the cops, but let's try to hear it.
You need an ambulance? Yeah. No, I need the cops.
Yeah, I can't hear it. Let's hear his explanation here. Okay, first, I'd like to clarify that it took some serious EQ and compression to hear some of these things. I didn't just listen to the YouTube vid a bunch. In many cases, I had to break down every single word. In an attempt to save time, I'm going to give my reasoning all at once to believe that A, this is what he said, B, Brandon Lawson was not alone, C, this is not the entire phone call. The opening sequence was one of the first flags for me that this is not the entire call, because it just does not make sense unless there is more context to his first line. I believe what we hear Brandon first say was actually further into the conversation with the operator. His first word is yes, which is a pretty weird way to start a conversation explaining your life is in danger. Instead, I think he already told the operator the name of the road they were on and is answering a question like, can you explain where you are right now? Because Brandon's first response is yes, I'm in the middle of the field. I spent a considerable amount of time figuring out if he said the or and I firmly believe he said the. This is important because I think it shows they had already established something about a field, and now he can refer to it as the field. The second part of the sentence has made me question writing this entire write-up, because I'm sure I'm going to get some huge pushback on my translation of the mysterious Staper line. Stater-Staper line. I have not seen anyone else interpret it this way, but I am very confident he says, we're safe, we're just pushing guys over. What do you mean? What does it mean, you ask? I have no idea, but it's the first where until the next line. We're out here going towards Abilene on both sides. Most people hear this, and I can confirm there is a TH at the end of both, and that there is an S at the beginning of sides. I think he's saying that the two of them are on both sides of the road going the same direction. We're out here going towards Abilene on both sides. That's actually interesting. So if it's him and another individual, they're walking on the sides of the road. Each are walking on a different side of the road. Would that make sense? That's interesting. That would make sense. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. That part is easy to tell, but the next is very odd. A guy cha-cha to the woods. This part really stands out to me because when imported into an audio suite where you can see the sound, the audio fades off immediately and unnaturally. After the cha sounds like che, and then there is a g sound followed by d, like Tour de France, and then a ch or sh sound. Put it all together, it sounds like che ga sh. My immediate thought when I got to the waveform of the che sound was that it looks and sounds like what happens when you fade out a sound very quickly in the audio world. The che ga de sh sound is immediately followed by almost perfect silence as far as this recording goes. I wanted to say it's proof that the part of the audio was edited, but it may have also been caused by the phone signal quickly dropping out. I don't know for sure. And you know what would be interesting if people actually went out into the general area and see if you get a really good signal at various distances from the road in that area. Because obviously in 2013 it might not have been as strong, but it would just be interesting because if it's still dropping to this day and it's not perfect, then we can add that as a very possible variable. Where if it's absolutely perfect, it could still have been an issue because in 2013, but at least it's more ambiguous, whereas we can definitely keep it on the table if the service is spotty even to this day. To the woods. This part is pretty clear to everyone. This phrase stands out to me because he delivers it much more laid back than any of his previous rapid words. He also holds out the S on the woods, giving it a fairly relaxed feel that is immediately followed by please hurry. Easy to hear and pretty self-explanatory. And that's another thing that doesn't quite make sense, where, again, his tonality changes throughout the call as if these are different areas of the call, and depending on what's going on in the background. So did he initially call calmly, and then people are getting chased and or shot, and then he's not calm? And again, whether he is or isn't on drugs, again, a lot of these things could occur either way. Operator, okay, now run that by me one more time, and then Brandon starts speaking at the same time. It took some pretty intense EQing and listening, but I fairly clear him say they will not talk things over. Then I accidentally ran into him. Let's listen to that again.
I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing guys over. Right here going towards gasoline on both sides. Not sure if ran out of gas. There's one car here. You got to take it. Please hurry. Okay, now run that by me. We're not talking to him. All right, so you're ready to him. Okay, I couldn't hear they will not talk things over, but I heard something, talk something. So I can clearly hear the talk. So it's kind of hard to tell who he's talking to. Is Brandon talking to another party there? So there's two parties in conflict in this area. One party is either chasing and or shooting, whether that's state troopers or law enforcement, who knows. And then another party is another group of individuals who will not talk things over. I don't know, quite bizarre. Let's continue here. Then Brandon says, I accidentally ran into him. This one you'll have to take my word for until I can post some EQ'd clips, because on the audio online it clearly sounds like totally, but when it's all cleaned up, it's accidentally. He slurs the I and the ax followed by tally. And again, we also have to factor in how many hours of sleep is Brandon running on. Because if he normally is working 90 plus hour weeks, and then he's also doing meth occasionally that he has to go procure, and he's having fights with Ladessa, I mean, this is a stressed out, overworked man that might not be getting any sleep at all. And the brain does funny things when you don't have a lot of sleep, in terms of even speech patterns and such. And if they also edited the call, I mean, we're in a big mess here, because it's kind of hard to figure all this out with all these variables. Operator says, you ran into him. Okay, not much to add to this. Now is when the weird-ass phone call gets even weirder. There is a third voice on the recording that is really quiet, but you can hear a male say, detective, followed by Brandon saying, shot the first guy. The voice saying detective could have been picked up on the 911 side of the call, and it sounds like it was being used in a sentence. Hard to tell. I did put a lot of time into making sure Brandon, in fact, says shot and not got. So that's an interesting theory. So if it's detective and not protect yourself, because detective would make more sense coming up on the 911 side of the phone call, but this is a small town area. There's 6 people in the department, whatever it was. I went over that in the first episode. Is it possible that there's some kind of interplay with the phone signals? I mean, this is 2013. You would think no, but maybe.
But there's so much other stuff going on in the phone call. It seems like there's other individuals there, regardless of whether that was picked up on the 911 side or not. If the audio is protect yourself, I guess theoretically that could still be on the 911 operator side. Here's the thing. Is the 911 operator, supposedly this is at some non-police facility? So is there more? They wouldn't have more than one dispatcher, would they? Like, we don't even have this dispatcher identified, but they're out of some kind of nursing home or some kind, I forgot what it was, where the dispatcher is performing their duty. So if there's nobody else there, who would be saying detective? Because this is not the police station. So this isn't an overheard people in the background on the 911 operator side saying detective. And the operator, don't they have like a fairly decent headset to prevent any kind of problems? Like all these other 911 calls I've heard, I don't know if I can recall a single one where there's some kind of pickup on the operator side. And again, people who have spent much time listening to various 911 calls, you can chime in here. All right, let's continue here. Then the gunshot. I had read people saying they heard a gunshot, and I was very skeptical. But there is almost definitely a gunshot right before the operator says, "Do you need an ambulance?" I'm a pretty avid gun owner, and the sound is extremely similar to a shotgun or rifle. The one thing I will say, it could also be the hood of a truck slamming. I definitely lean towards a gunshot, though, because you can hear the sound reverberate for a long time, and it would have to be a very loud hood. Interesting. One thing I find extremely odd about the gunshot is that Brandon doesn't seem to react to it at all. I think I can hear 2 other gunshots in the recording, but this one is definitely the loudest and the closest. Now for a really weird part that I haven't seen much about. When the operator says, "Do you need an ambulance?" there is another voice saying something at the exact same time. It sounds like a low, gravely African-American male voice to me. I spent a huge amount of time on that damn line, but I have no idea what he says. I believe it's 4 words, though. Brandon's response is the reason I am certain there was someone else there. Yeah, no, I need the cops. The yeah is said in a laughing manner to the person that he is there with. It is difficult to hear the laugh part, but it is there. Whatever the person said must have provided some comic relief for the split second Brandon responded to him, and then immediately responded to the operator with, "No, I need the cops." Operator, okay, is anybody hurt? This last part is something I have not seen online that I'm aware of, but right before the operator says hello for the first time, you can hear Brandon whisper, "Crap." You can hear the sound of a vehicle coming from the distance and getting very close, right as he whispers, "Crap." You can hear him breathing into the phone for a bit, and the operator says hello 2 more times, and the audio just ends. Not like it was hung up, it just ends. Someone clearly found Brandon that he didn't want to see, and he stayed on the phone. There's no way the phone call ended like this, and I think whatever was heard next was probably held back for the sake of the family. I'm sorry this write-up is so long, and I have a lot more to say about the case, but I'll leave it at this for now. Thanks for reading. Let me know what you think. Yeah, let's try to hear the crap again. And I don't hear the car coming up either, but that would explain why he suddenly stops talking if he's discovered on the call by yet another party, not the immediate party he's there with.
Oh, you ran into him, okay. Just a boat, Doc. Just a boat, Doc. Do you need an ambulance?
No, I need the call.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello? 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 Hurt. Hello? Hello?
hear the crap. It kind of sounds, I could just hear what is either a gunshot or a car going over the bridge or some kind of sound off in the distance. I don't hear the crap. Then again, I don't have the most expensive headphones, so perhaps other people can hear that. But anyway, the comments here, people are saying, of course, a guy chased us into the woods and chased to the woods. So is it chased us? Again, would that provide the clue that he's not alone? And was that removed for a reason? Other people postulate, he says, one guy here taken into the woods. After possibly saying, we just screwed some guys over, they will not talk things over, I accidentally ran into him. And then a gunshot shot the first guy. So they either got mixed up with some bad people or had the worst luck ever and got into an accident with some bad people. That's interesting. Now, is that related to procuring drugs or not? Did Brandon pick someone up on his way there? We'll be looking at a couple different theories, but I just thought of something else too. Let's say there is, what's this third party? So whether or not Brandon picked somebody up, let's say maybe he did, maybe one person, maybe two people, they either got into a car accident or screwed some guys over. If, again, the audio is, I know, who knows? Would he tell that to the police? I don't know. Again, maybe if he's on drugs, maybe he would. But where is all this happening? If this is happening in a particular plot of land with a landowner that does not appreciate people that he thinks are either involved in some kind of drug deal, or possibly one of those groups has guns, did the landowner chase them? Did a landowner not appreciate what was going on his land? Do the police know about it? Is the landowner affiliated with the police in some capacity, and he told them what happened? The police might not care necessarily, because if they're going to protect the landowner and they think he just shot a bunch of drug dealers anyway, they might not care, right? I don't know. Are state troopers involved? So it may or may not involve corrupt law enforcement, but it's really interesting because it's very difficult to know for certain what was said in the call, particularly if it was edited after the fact with parts deleted, out of order, and we'll get into another mind-shocking theory in a moment. Some people postulate instead of Staper pulled some guys over, we're safe, we're just pushing guys over, or fact, we just screwed some guys over, or think we just screwed some guys over. Also, couldn't tell whether he said totally or accidentally ran into him, or whether they shot the first guy or got the first guy. Another comment here, to me, from listening to the slowed down SoundCloud files, it sounds like we're safe, we just screwed some guys over. Still doesn't make sense, but makes more sense to me than pushing guys over. I listened to the recording several times, and the U sounds a lot more like the EU in screwed than the U in pushing. Screwed, pushing, screwed, pushing. At least to me. Also, I'm definitely hearing an R sound between the consonant, which is hard to make out, but it sounds more like an SC sound rather than a P sound and the vowel. Even the cadence fits better with screwed some guys over. If it's pushing, then he extended the first syllable of the word in a weird way. Someone else states, no, I definitely hear a P in the beginning of the word. I hear it's like we're perching guys over. Perching. Another commenter, I definitely agree that the word he begins with is something close to a P. Either a bilabial or a labiodental. Labiodental. P and B are bilabial, i.e. made with both lips, while F and V are labiodental, meaning both lips and teeth. I also agree that the final sound is an ED, a very soft E sound, which in and of itself excludes the word pushed. Because if you pay attention to the sound of the word and not the spelling, you will hear that you actually say pushed, P-U-S-H-T. as is verified by the Wiktionary pronunciation. The middle sounds, however, are much less clear. There is definitely an R sound in the nucleus of the word. This is a very technical analysis by this individual here. The big issue is the sound that the original poster marks as SH marks as W, and you mark CH. The audio is too muddy to make it out clearly. I would almost be interested in hearing the original poster's equalization, but I question the value of it, since the one thing I am fairly certain of is that there is no SH sound in there. What it actually is, however, is a mystery to me. The problems are numerous. The central issue is that the speaker is obviously agitated, and that is affecting his speech production. To add to the problem, the W sound along with the Y are the only two sounds in English that are glides. They are made with motion instead of holding the lips, jaw, and tongue in a fixed position. This means that the part of what I hear as a W could easily be just an effect of his agitation. The CH sound, on the other hand, is a voiceless alveopalatal affricate, or a voiceless post-alveolar affricate, which essentially that the tongue is pressed fairly close to where its natural resting position in the mouth is. This again increases the likelihood of it being a mispronunciation due to agitation, perhaps in the place of S, D, or J. Plus, there is a burst of static sound exactly when it is enunciated that further confuses things. All this is to say I'm not totally sure what he says. Someone with a formal background in linguistics might be able to provide more insight. Everything I know about the field comes from research for a language I am making in the novel I am working on, but I am at the limits of my knowledge. A response here: to clarify, being a southerner myself, I think he says, "Think we just screwed some guys over." Think we just screwed some guys over. I believe he pronounces his S like an SH in some instances. Some people do, especially Southerners in my experience. That's what I'm hearing, and that would explain why I hear a W where others hear a CH or SH sound. The sh sound is there, but it's part of the next word. We Southerners tend to not enunciate, and we run our words together. Like Jeff Foxworthy's "Jeet yet? Did you eat yet? Jeet yet." One might hear a J sound, but the speaker is running a D and a Y, so it only resembles a J sound. I know someone else posted, I know some Southerners who add R sounds to certain words, like wash becomes washed. Maybe this explains it. So you're saying you have no clue what he is saying. I think the biggest cause of confusion is poor audio quality and the fact he is agitated, which amplifies his thick West Texas accent. Not sure if you've spent much time around these parts, but I doubt a linguistics expert could provide much more insight than the original poster or someone with a background in audio engineering. Regional accent and dialect play a major role in this call. The response here: yeah, I think I can rule a couple of the suggestions out, particularly pushed, but I can't give a definite answer as to what he is saying. What a linguistic expert might know is how being agitated specifically affects speech production. Is there a tendency to use a vowel sound closer to the center or further out, and what the tongue specifically does in slurring consonants? I agree that the audio quality is a bigger factor, but even regarding the accent, I think someone who had an understanding of linguistics could probably be of some help, since most of us can normally understand these accents when spoken by someone who is calm. And that's a good point. If we had a team of, let's say, a couple of audio engineers, a couple of regional dialect experts, and linguistics experts, and maybe even a couple psychologists throw in there, this whole team could probably get a little bit more out of the phone call. But I think this analysis here and this discussion here is pretty good as well. Another interesting response here by Mr. Real Human: there are instances where criminals will befriend an unknowing accomplice, like, "Yo, you want to make some money? Come with me." You're thinking manual labor, maybe a drug deal if you're a user, and your dealer is asking a favor. Then you turn into an unwitting accomplice of murder, or far more likely here, robbery. That would explain screwing people over and the second voice. Personally, I think pretty much every theory posted, especially the one I just made up, are all horse expletive. This sounds like a mental breakdown. Someone suggested CO2, and my immediate reaction was to make fun since people love the CO2 thing after that one Reddit post. But the more I think about it, I think that may very well be the case. If it was CO2, perhaps he ran into the wrong person. Perhaps he was delusional and saw two people on the side of the road and made a scene. Maybe he got his clarity back and fled after a potential threat. His CO2 leaking truck only to run out of gas shortly after because he was too whacked out on CO2 to consider. He calls the police and minutes later his buddies from earlier have pulled up next to him. Car door slams, aka the gunshot, followed by the realization he is expletive. Crap. Could he have even just began as a fight? Maybe if Brandon had CO2 poisoning or whatever, said or did something to offend them, they find him intending to beat his ass, but they accidentally kill him, or he just wanted to get the expletive out of his life and faked it all. And wow, interesting. Someone responded, just no. And Mr. Real Human responded, wow, you should be a lawyer. Do they have a law firm made up of people with brain damage? If so, you would fit right in. Okay, anyway, so, okay, but his initial theory, which even Mr. Real Human himself thought was horse expletive, that's actually not too bad, but perhaps it wasn't a stranger. If it was some kind of dealer or somebody wanted to score drugs with, how far would he go to get some meth? Would they try to screw some guys over or rob some guys? And how would that end up? So let's get to some more mind shocks here. Some more comments from Reddit. Some random questions I have for people more versed in the case. I like to ask preliminary questions in a case in hopes of generating new ideas. I am not in any way insisting that I know anything about this case. I am just throwing out ideas to people who have been following the case for years and possibly generating a new idea with them. I am not an inside-the-box kind of guy, and feel free to chop my ideas down in a constructive manner or in a manner that I learn something new about the case. Here are a few of my initial thoughts reading into this case for about 8 hours. There was a trucker that called 911. Can we confirm he called? I know that Channel 9 on a CB radio allows you to call in emergencies to whoever is listening on Channel 9, and they will call the police for you. It was a lot more common before cell phones. If the trucker did call 911, did anyone file for the FOIA on those records? Anything from those records might produce a new clue. In my humble opinion, you can eliminate anything that the dispatcher is saying on the 911 call. It is my suspicion that Brandon is talking to her as if she knows what is happening. This is why I think that I'm in the middle of a field, Staper just pulled some guys over, takes a breath, it seems to me in the middle of a thought. The reason I think this is because I breathe wrong when I talk, having to take a breath in the middle of a thought. He is doing this because he is in a panic state. Right here, going towards Abilene on both sides, again, saying this as if the dispatcher knows what he is talking about. As if she knows that 2 state police cars have someone pulled over on both sides of the car. Breathes in again. My truck ran out of gas. You got 1 car here talking about a police car. Actually, if that word is you got 1 car here, let's try to listen to that again. Let's listen to that again.
Hurt. My truck ran out of gas. There's 1 car here. You got to take it to the woods.
Yeah, it's hard to tell whether it says you got 1 car here or 1 car here. There's 1 car here. If he said you got 1 car here and he's calling the police, again, it's hard to discern whether that's a you got 1 car here or there's 1 car here. If he says you got 1 car here, then that's interesting because then we know for sure he's talking about a police car and it might be state troopers pulled some guys over. Or even still, let's not fall for black and white logical fallacies. Perhaps he did say screwed some guys over. And also, you got a car here, so the police also showed up. More than one thing can, of course, be true. It's interesting. Then he says, detective chased, hard to tell, into the woods. And this is if the detective sound is made by Brandon. It's hard to tell because it seems like someone saying detective or protect yourself is speaking at a distance from the phone, unless Brandon turned his head away from the phone. Like, if he's in a panic state, there's a lot of stuff going on, he turns away to say detective, then he turns back mouth to the speaker to say chased. I suppose that's a possibility. Please hurry. Now let's run that again as if we are more calm. 911 emergency. Yes, I am out here in the middle of a field. State police cars pulled someone over on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. You have one car here, and the detective ran into the woods. Or the detective chased some guys into the woods. Please hurry. Then I hear, wait, I actually just ran into him. Detective has got the first guy. Then she says, do you need an ambulance? While she says that, Brandon says, I have rights. I assume the guy who shot him shook his head, no. Brandon was responding, yeah, to him. Then, no, I need the cops to the dispatcher. Wait a second. This individual is hearing, I have rights, that Brandon is saying. Let's see if I can hear that.
Okay, now run that down.
We're not talking to him. I told you ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
No, I need the...
Do you need an ambulance? Do you need an ambulance? Do you need an ambulance?
Wow. I almost hear I got. Now, the original poster that the audio guy that analyzed the call for 10 hours, he's stating it sounds like a low, gravely African-American male voice, and he has no idea what he says, and he believes there's 4 words. I did hear something got, possibly I got, and then I can't hear the other word. And it sounds like Brandon is talking, but he's talking away from the phone, so it might not have been another guy, or there might be overlap of yet another guy talking. But if Brandon turned away from the phone to say, I got rights, is he talking to some kind of rogue detective or state trooper? Did he call the cops on the cops? And if Brandon is the one saying detective, or another guy there detective, or if he's turning his mouth away from the phone, would that sound like a different person? And then there might also be another person there. I don't know. This is a very interesting theory, though, because if Brandon Lawson did indeed say, I got rights to somebody, is he talking to a police officer? Or someone impersonating a police officer? Let me reread this latest comment that I was reading before. Then I hear it, wait, I actually just ran into him. Detective has got the first guy. She says, do you need an ambulance? While she says that, Brandon says, I have rights. I assume the guy who shot him shook his head. No. Brandon was responding, yeah, to him. And then, no, I need the cops to the dispatcher. Now again, someone in a panic situation, you would need an ambulance also, but if someone's trying to kill you in that moment, your ambulance is probably going to be the last thing on your mind because you need somebody to help you survive, like a police officer. So he might just be focused on that, especially if he's in a panic state. Would he say, no, I need an ambulance? Yes, of course I need an ambulance, but I also need police to arrive. If he's just thinking he needs cops, he'll just say cops. Now let's put this into perspective. Let's say the detectives Brandon is talking about are not that at all. They are impersonating an officer. Or is it a gang that has fitted an old Crown Vic with lights? Brandon would have no way of knowing these people were not police. He calls them detectives. I would call a plainclothes officer getting out of an unmarked car with flashing red and blues a detective. I would call an officer in uniform a cop. Play the conversation in your head now without breaths, in more complete sentences and thoughts. Yes, I am in the middle of the field. State police car pulled some guys over on both sides of the car. I'm only here because I ran out of gas. You have one car here. Detectives chased someone into the woods. Please hurry. While the dispatcher asks him to run that by her again, he runs into someone who he thinks is a cop. I'm talking to him, referring to who he thinks is a cop. I actually ran into him. Brandon seems relieved for a second. Detectives got the first guy, he says into the phone, which brings the attention to Brandon. I have rights. Brandon tells the person who he thinks is the detective. Then Brandon says yeah to the detective and no, I need the cops to the dispatcher. Okay, this is quite a mind-shocking theory and also heartbreaking at the same time, because if there's some kind of, let's say Brandon ran into some drug dealers or whatever, and then either people and criminals impersonating police officers or detectives in an unmarked vehicle, or possibly crooked detectives as well. The thing is, if this was maybe some kind of undercover operation or something, detectives are chasing guys into the woods. He's calling the cops because he needs more police. Did he know they were? He might not know exactly what's going on, obviously. And then if he runs into people impersonating a police officer or detective, he thinks he's okay at that moment. Then he realizes that something is wrong. Is that when he whispers crap? Again, I do not hear the crap, but again, you guys can listen to it, see what you hear. But regardless, he stops talking while still being on the phone. And then if there's another really loud gunshot at that point that was edited out for whatever reason, is that the situation that happened? It kind of sort of makes sense. This person has theorized that Brandon's irregular breathing in the panic state is what's causing the weird pauses, and then also the low quality of the call, and also if the signal is going in and out. So perhaps it wasn't edited, and it was the breathing that was disrupting it all, or maybe it was also edited to cover something up, if indeed some corrupt law enforcement are responsible, or for other reasons that we don't know about. So, yeah, very, very mind-shocking. Let's go over a couple more theories. I think it's possible the guy in the background is on the other end of the call. Someone who is familiar with the area claims what sounds like gunshots is the sound of a truck going over a bridge in the area. For Brandon to hang out in the area long enough for his brother to get there is very odd. It's also weird that Brandon called the cops but then wouldn't come out from hiding when they arrived. Was he hiding from his brother? The cop that was there never mentioned there was a 911 call. Did he know about it, or was he only there because of the call made about a truck broke down on the side of the road? How much time went by from the 911 call to when his brother showed up? I still think Brandon wanted to talk to the cop. I also think it's possible Brandon told his brother to run because he didn't want him to know he had called 911. I find it hard to believe Brandon met with foul play at the time of night, especially after the cop showed up. About a year ago, Brandon's ex went to court and won a case against Brandon for back child support. How could that be? By now, Brandon could be declared dead. Why hasn't anyone done that? And so these are comments on the Mindshock podcast, YouTube comments, and I'll be getting into the most mind-shocking theory yet. But just a quick point on this one. Do we have anything other than Kyle Lawson's word to corroborate what Brandon told him about the cop? Like one time run and where's your pride, mother expletive? Who said that that's how the conversation went down other than Kyle? Who said Brandon Lawson was even still alive at that moment and that he was hiding there? There were some marks nearby, and that's how law enforcement supposedly theorized that he was there at the time of the call and he saw the officer. What if that's not true? What if Brandon was already met his demise at the time of the 911 call? And he wasn't there. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? Now, that doesn't mean that Kyle is responsible for something. He might be innocent, but he might think something else went down other than went down with other individuals that he may be afraid of or whatever. He was involved in drugs as well. He did prison time. So this is somebody who's interacting and intersecting with other shady individuals. So do we have any corroboration of that Brandon saying making that reference to one time run from the cop, whatever. Or if so, is it some kind of a ruse and Brandon suspects Kyle is involved in some kind of attack on him? And he wants to get him away from the officer and he wants to get to the officer. And it's rough. If he somehow got away from the first situation, is it possible that he did encounter the officer later and then we don't know what happened? I mean, there's so many unanswered questions, but let's get to the most mind-shocking theory of all, if that wasn't mind-shocking enough, regarding the issues with the phone call. So again, this is another YouTube comment on the Mindshock podcast. Thursday night, when Brandon was out there supposedly, Kyle called that Chris guy that Brandon got meth from on Wednesday, and he went back out there with him. My theory was if somebody was with Brandon, it was Chris. That's who he was getting meth from. But I still think that call could have been staged. And before we get to all the issues with the call being staged, let's examine this. The last known person that Brandon might have been with was Chris. If him and Chris went somewhere, if the 911 call is not staged and Chris is there with him and something happened, Brandon met his fate, Chris somehow didn't and left, if Kyle's the good guy here, he suspects what's going on. He goes to get Chris, and they go looking for Brandon and they can't find him, and Chris is playing stupid the whole time. Is that another possibility? Did Brandon pick up Chris and then encounter other individuals? Now, Chris may have also not necessarily set Brandon up on purpose. There's different scenarios there. He might have simply got away without helping him in a cowardly fashion, or it might be some kind of a setup. We don't know. Kyle may or may not also be involved in that setup. Another thing that's interesting is in other reports, supposedly they just said Kyle may or may not have had friends when he went to look for Brandon. And another point, is there any verification that he really ran out of gas, though? Because if this didn't happen when it was said to have happened, and there's issues with the phone call, because Kyle said he put the gas back in the truck, and there's other issues. Supposedly, Kyle got direct deposit at midnight, so he wouldn't have had to wait to get the funds. I don't know what the issue there is, or if there was some delay, or whether he really had the money. And did he put gas in the truck whenever? Or was there gas already in the truck and he just made up the story about bringing the extra gas can? Again, I'm not saying anything is true or untrue. But let's continue here. So the call could have been staged. That could be a recording of Brandon playing with his kids. That protect yourself, simulated gunshot, and the I've been shot could be a kid's laser tag toy. Laser tag helmets make those kinds of statements, or was it one of the property owners that shot him for being on some land that Brandon wasn't supposed to be? And he's jumping all over the place with the comment, and this comment's a little all over the place, but would that explain Brandon's apparent lackadaisical fashion? Was this call somehow spliced with other things? And we'll get to that in a moment. Or was it one of the property owners that shot him for being on some land that Brandon wasn't supposed to be on? I don't know why you would leave your truck if your brother is on the way. The fact that he doesn't come out, like, what are you going to do? Stay out there? You can ride back with your brother. That's why my mind tells me the call itself is staged, and that's why Brandon keeps talking even when the operator asks him to explain, and they put the truck out there, and Brandon was never there. Him and Kyle got into a fight because my theory is Brandon was supposed to get some with Kyle too. That's why he kept calling him the 2 days, asking him where he is. When he finally gets back that Thursday, he is fighting with Ledessa at the house, and Kyle comes over to calm him down. Something bad happened. Meth makes people violent, and all of them were doing it. That could have happened around 5 or 6 p.m. Thursday, and they took 7 hours or more to set this up and then staged and made the phony 911 call, all using a video recording of Brandon playing with one of his sons. Ledessa says she had that recording on her phone. She says she recorded it when the cops played it for her, but did she already have it beforehand? Now, there's a lot of information there. I don't know how much of that is corroborated with this, but I mean, it wouldn't be that surprising that Ledessa had a video of Brandon playing with one of his kids. Now, the question is that same audio in some of the videos of Brandon playing with his kids, is that what was used to stage this phone call from Brandon Lawson's phone, which they had, and Brandon Lawson actually met his demise earlier under other circumstances and was possibly never at the truck? I don't know. And if police suspect that maybe Ledessa or Kyle Lawson had something to do with this, I mean, it's I don't know how they would have handled that situation. Would they probably wouldn't go public and say, oh yeah, this 911 call is staged. But on the other hand, how come the 911 dispatchers, as of yet unidentified to this day? And what is all the secrecy surrounding the trucker who called 911 about the truck? And I would assume that law enforcement would have alibis for Kyle Lawson for X amount of period. Now, when was the last time Brandon was known to be alive? So did neighbors see him arguing with Ledessa? Did they see him leave in his own truck? Is there any verification of any of this? I would think there would be. But again, with a lot of these unsolved cases, you really have to go back to square one, and you really do need to start with the individuals closest to the missing person, because most of the time they're responsible. That doesn't mean it's Ledessa or Kyle, but perhaps one of the drug dealers he was associated with. All of these people need to be looked at, and we can't really take anything at face value that cannot be verified or corroborated definitively. So, hope you guys enjoyed another edition of the Mindshock podcast in the Brandon Lawson series. We actually have even more to go over regarding various theories and other law enforcement issues. So there's still more to go over. As always, if you find the podcast interesting and want to help support Mindshock, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. You could also go to youtube.com/Mindshock or youtube.com/MindshockTrueCrime. Hit that like button, share this podcast across social media platforms, keep up awareness in this case, as well as other missing persons and cold cases and wrongful conviction cases, all of which we cover on Mindshock. Share this podcast across social media platforms, of which you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.